so counterproductive to the very cause that you're advocating for.
Well, and it feeds into what he wanted to do. What he wants to do is he wants to create a scene. He wants to say, I was justified in sending in the National Guard because look at how violent these protesters are, which they were not.
And I say this as a former party chair, when there is a gathering, a large gathering of people, the anarchists see it as an opportunity and they move in.
This is wild. A mysterious black truck just passed out all of these expensive bionic face shields to protesters in LA, and the news caught it on camera. I zoomed in and found out this is the UVEX bionic shield. These are not cheap. They're around $45 to $65, and you can't just get them in bulk. But one place that sells them is Walmart. And why is that important? Because there's a new protest being promoted called No Kings on June 14th. And even celebrities like Chrissy Teigen are posting it. And it's in magazines and newspapers. And guess who's behind this message? Christy Walton. That's right, one of the billionaire heiresses, a part of the Walmart family. Now, I don't know why they would be behind that protest against President Trump, but remember, just less than 3 weeks ago, President Trump tweeted about the whole tariff situation, saying Walmart should stop trying to blame tariffs as the reason for raising prices throughout the chain. Walmart made billions of dollars of last year, far more than expected. Between Walmart and China, they should, as is said, eat the tariffs and not charge valued customers anything. I'll be watching, and so will your customers. So, is it possible that maybe the Walmart family didn't like that and now they're finding ways to make their voices heard? Or is this just a big coincidence? As always, let me know what you think about all of this down below.
He's a stone-cold liar. I respect the presidency. I've tried to have an open hand with him, tried to work with him. You can't work with Donald Trump. You can only work for him. And I will not. I refuse to work for Donald Trump.
Protests, and even those who were out of step with what we are advocating, peaceful protest, did not create any violence. Nobody was shot. Nobody was killed. Get it in your head.
They've gotten so good at it now. They can just, it's second nature. They stand there and stare at you with a straight face and lie to you. I guess Pelosi doesn't know about this one. Maybe she does, and she's just ignoring it, just like the rest of them. Breaking. Democrat rioters are shooting at the police in broad daylight. They're literally trying to murder law enforcement, and the Democrat Party is clearly the enemy of America. Just in, federal judge denies Gavin Newsom's effort to force President Trump to withdraw the National Guard from LA. Sides with President Trump. Not only is it a rough day for Gavin, but this should say something. This should be loud and clear, folks. A federal judge has just blocked Gavin Newsom's attempt to revoke the federalization of the National Guard. This is a huge blow to the government in California that wants to allow the invasion to continue. Key word there. This is important. They want this to continue.
The judge has denied the state of California's request to stop Trump from using the California National Guard to keep the peace and keep order during these protests. CNN's Elena Treen is at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, where President Trump is speaking. And Elena, that's a big development, the judge denying California's request. Tell us about that, and tell us what the president has been saying in his Fort Bragg speech.
They stomp on them, but they're too tough. They don't allow it. And attempting to infiltrate and occupy federal buildings wearing armor and face shields. The best money can buy, somebody's financing it. We're going to find out through Pam Bondi and Department of Justice who it is. They're already on it. Who's financing all this equipment?
And I have to show you this because CNN won't, and they will, as you will soon see, just make up some fake news narrative to try and push their agenda.
Very professional. Under the Trump administration, this anarchy will not stand. We will not allow federal agents to be attacked, and we will not allow an American city to be invaded and conquered by a foreign enemy, and that's what they are. A lot of those people were let in here by the Biden administration. They just poured right in. They came from prisons. They came from jails.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge deal for the president here and his administration. And we heard just moments ago the president saying that he wants to liberate Los Angeles and really attacking Governor Gavin Newsom and Mayor Bass for the way that they've been responding to him calling in the National Guard and the Marines to go and try and quell these protests. Where obviously, I'm sure if he's not alerted about it on stage, we'll soon after be hearing from him directly, I'm sure, lauding that decision from the court. But to go back to some of the criticism we heard, just now I'm hearing him use that nickname for his derogatory nickname for Gavin.
Thank you. I think he has a strategy here. Mm-hmm. He is losing support in every area. Inflation, the economy, tariffs, foreign policy. His ratings are dropping.
Even
like
on immigration,
like rocks. But there's one catch.
Is it like under 30%?
Current support right now, though, is that 66% of the American public actually thinks it is crime enough to be undocumented. And therefore deported.
That it's criminal to be undocumented?
Yes, it is not. You know how the disagreement was in the beginning? We were told it was going to be violent criminals. And I think everyone at this table would agree. Yeah. Haul out violent criminals, fine. Right. But a very important distinction was 60% of the American public, 2/3 of independents, 90% of Republicans, and just a little under half of Democrats think the crime is in being undocumented.
Even if it's a civil offense.
Yes.
Immigrant citizens, immigrant voters, foreign-born voters have gone tremendously to the right on this issue in 2024 and 2025 versus where they were in 2020. Closest to or trust more in immigration. You go back to 2020. Democrats, get this, held a 32-point lead on this issue. Immigrant voters were in the Democratic camp. Jump forward to 2024, 2025. Look at that shift, a 40-point shift to the right among immigrant voters. Republicans now lead on this issue by 8 points over Democrats, more so than any other group that I could find. The group of voters who became more hawkish on immigration were in fact immigrants themselves, immigrants who are registered to vote in this country.
So that's on that issue. How about how they feel about kind of traditionally, historically about Donald Trump?
Yeah. So, you see this shift and you go, what is going on underneath the hood? Well, take a look, Donald Trump. You remember when he first ran back in 2016, immigrant voters were one of his weakest spots. But look at this. Trump's vote share in presidential election among, again, immigrant citizens, those who are registered to vote. Look at this. In 2016, he got 36% of the vote. You go to 2020, 39% of the vote. Look at this. In 2024, all the way up to 47% of the vote. Some polls I looked at had him barely losing that vote. Some polls I looked at had him barely winning that vote. Again, there is no block of voters that shifted more to the right from 2020 to 2024 than immigrant voters, and Donald Trump, at least in some surveys, actually won that vote. On average, it's about equal. So there may be all this stuff, right, about undocumented immigrants and Trump being harsh on them, but immigrant voters themselves have increasingly liked Donald Trump and have increasingly moved to the right on immigration into the Republican camp.
Well, then on that, what you're getting at, how immigrant citizens, voters, feel about people in the country illegally.
Yeah, and this is where it all kind of comes together, Kate Baldwin. Look at this. The net favorable rating, immigrants who are here illegally, among immigrant citizens, again, those registered to vote. In 2020, look at this, plus 23 points on the net favorable rating. But look at where we were in 2024, minus 6 points, underwater. So immigrant citizens have become increasingly unfavorable in their views of those immigrants who are here illegally. So I think it's so important when we're talking about this debate from a political angle to separate those out who are undocumented immigrants versus those who are here legally and those who are citizens and those who are voters, because that group of voters has felt increasingly distant from those immigrants who are here legally. And so again, when we're talking about this, at least from a political angle, this is why Donald Trump feels so comfortable, because in fact, amongst the group that you would think that would be most opposed to this, in fact, they become increasingly favorable, not just towards Donald Trump, but towards a Republican point of view on immigration and becoming distant from those immigrants who are here illegally.
You know, I live in LA, so I decided to go downtown today and talk to people and find out what's really going on, what's their side of the story, to only get attacked and realize that they're all full of shit, okay? Can't believe any of them. They're all full of shit.
And so, when martial law is called, what are you going to say? I missed the point. Don't miss the point, you all. Don't think that somehow, because they called out the National Guard, there was violence. There was no violence. I was on the street. I know. And I went from downtown detention back out into the community, talking to people what happened in Paramount, what happened in Compton, what happened in Inglewood. So, first of all, get it straight. And don't just rely on what you're being told or the few incidents that you saw.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is a massive amount of this country actually agrees with not how he's doing it, but with what he's doing.
So there's
I think the strategy here is he's leaning into a scene right now, creating a bigger thing, because it is the one thing that he remains supportive of.
Let's fix that right now, because it is not illegal to be undocumented. It is not a crime to be...
To be this stupid. Sonny Hostin and the rest of these morons on The View can't believe their own eyes and ears. These are the facts. And most importantly, the truth. Gavin Newsom's losing it, not only because the judge denied his request, but he's over here complaining about Politico having posted that troops deployed to LA will cost $134 million, according to a Pentagon official. And Gavin Newsom quotes, ironically, using Elon Musk's platform, but I guess it's okay because Elon Musk and Trump are fighting right now. And he says 134 million, that should be going to LA's fire recovery. Shameful. I don't know who he's trying to convince to believe the things that he says, but can you imagine how much of a fire recovery fund they would need if they didn't send the National Guard? I mean, I guess they wouldn't need it because all of Los Angeles would burn to the ground and then the rest of California would follow suit. Meanwhile, according to Newsom's auntie here, Pelosi, according to Nancy Pelosi, if you see a car burning in LA, it may just be the exuberance of the moment. Equally as batshit crazy and needing to retire from being a career politician and probably slightly inebriated, Representative Maxine Waters says, no violence in LA. Don't believe what you saw. It's not even a matter of don't believe the lies. She literally said, don't believe what you saw. And a lot of these folks are literally standing there, boots on the ground. And I know they know what they saw. Either way, if this isn't violence, then what should you call it? I bet this small business owner doesn't really care what you call it and just wishes it would stop. Local business owner, thanks Benny Johnson for posting this one, goes scorched earth on the deranged anti-ICE rioters in LA.
This is so ridiculous. This doesn't look like this is they're protesting for ICE or anything. This is they're doing just for the looting the stores and everything. I saw they break into the Apple store, they break into the Adidas store. This is not they're doing protest.
And most of this, honestly, guys, I can't even show you because YouTube considers it to be, you guessed it, violence. So sorry for the censorship, I guess. Sonny Hostin is shocked to learn that the American people overwhelmingly agree that invading our country is a crime. Gunther Eagleman says it is illegal to be in this country without proper documentation, no matter what these postmenopausal women claim. As we saw earlier, Walmart is funding this. Christy Walton, billionaire heiress of Walmart, is funding No Kings protests all across America against Donald Trump. Question is, what's their end game? And this is after breaking. We just saw people arrive in downtown LA with truckloads of bionic face shields that demonstrators quickly grabbed. Yeah. Holy smokes. Eric Doherty says President Trump just announced the DOJ is investigating who is financing the Los Angeles rioters. And this is a good one. GPS data from the Los Angeles riots per Tony Saruga reveals at least 309 tracked devices are linked to, and I honestly thought he was going to say here, linked to the same Kamala Harris rally buses and crowds that we were tracking before, but it says these devices are linked to ultra wealthy homes worth over $10 million in areas like Brentwood, Bel Air, Beverly Hills, Malibu, Palo Alto, and cities such as New York, Seattle, and Maui. 79% of them reportedly fly private 3 or more times a year. Yeah. But the TDS is not only isolated to the streets of LA, now moving on to Texas, seen here on the set of Disney's, ABC's, The View, and perhaps all across the country for this No Kings tour that seems to be firing up here. But watch as Democrat freaks out when confronted with hypocrisy over using National Guard in LA versus January 6th. He starts screaming, crying.
Now, you mentioned that you want to have the National Guard withdrawn. You don't want to have the National Guard even involved in this. You also mentioned the insurrection, so to speak, on January 6th. That was back when the National Guard was pulled back and was waiting for a long period of time. And then there was a big investigation that was put into that. And people said, "Where's the National Guard? We're having all these rioters who came into the Capitol. Where is the National Guard?" Then all of a sudden, here we have the National Guard that was put in there because there was, let's face it, a lot of rioters and a lot of violence that was going on there that you're calling peaceful protesters. But a lot of people didn't see that on the TV screens. So either you don't have the National Guard that didn't come in on time on January 6th, or you do have the National Guard where there was violence. We did see it on our TV screens. What do you want?
So, wait a second. So on January 6th, I was here. There was 50,000 people outside. They were scaling the walls. They were bashing in, breaking in with members of Congress trapped in the gallery, including myself, including a lot of the people here. That was a dire situation where the police were run over. People were beaten with.
Including what happened over Los Angeles.
The difference is Speaker Pelosi asked for help. Very different situation. And here's the thing: Donald Trump is the one that was actually inciting that. And here's what's also going on. How many police officers have died in LA? 0. How many people died on January 6th? 5. How many people their heads were beaten in here? At least 1 or 2 or maybe more, right? There was so when people say that Democrats are being not consistent is completely wrong. Next question.
I bet 100 years from now, Democrats like this one will still be finding ways to blame Donald Trump for the new problems that they created.
How does the government always have enough money to terrorize people, but never enough to feed and house them? How can we afford to send military resources into Los Angeles and spend billions of dollars on missiles for Israel, but we can't afford universal health care? The response is usually that we can't afford things because immigrants have bankrupted our systems. But who told you they were bankrupt in the first place? Probably the same people who allocate hundreds of billions of dollars in tax cuts and government contracts to themselves and their ultra-wealthy friends. And if it is these immigrants who have bankrupted our public systems, why is it that all of the immigration raids are taking place at workplaces where people are earning a paycheck and taxes are taken out of that paycheck and go into the social safety net? The math doesn't add up, the logic doesn't make sense, and yet they've gotten this far solely by relying on people's fear. The truth is that private prisons, the military-industrial complex, and Big Pharma are some of the biggest donors to the Republican Party in power right now, and they are going to continue to do everything they can to funnel resources their way so that they can stay in power versus actually spending resources on the public good. So be skeptical of those who tell you we can't afford something, because it's not a budgetary problem, it's a moral and ethical one.
You know what's so funny? Everyone who felt comfy enough to out themselves that they voted for Trump back in January, they're dead silent right now. Dead silent.
Apprehending them and taking them away from their families and their jobs and the lives they've built here doesn't bother you, then you're a bad person. And I don't want to be your friend. And I don't care about your opinion.
Just remember, you are seeking validation from a world that crucified a perfect man.
I say this in the most disrespectful way possible as a first-generation American whose parent is not from this country.
And this post here says, white women are out in full force on TikTok to tell the world how bad the ICE raids in Los Angeles are. Sorry I have to put you guys through this, but I think it's a valuable, worthwhile lesson to learn here.
If you got here and you got papers and you agree with what's going on right now, fuck you.
If you are a resident of Los Angeles, California, and you have a large platform on this app on the internet, and you have decided, you have made the conscious choice to not speak out against the ICE raids that are taking place in this city right now, the attack that Los Angeles is feeling in this moment, if you are not sticking your head out for your own community, the city of Los Angeles in which you live, that you benefit so much from, if you can't do that, you do not deserve your platform, and maybe you should fucking move.
I don't know who needs to hear this, but being undocumented isn't a crime. You're just racist. See you in hell. Mwah.
I think it's important to remember that though what Trump is doing in LA is absolutely deranged and incredibly fucked up, it is an act of desperation. The people behind all this, though it may seem very calculated, are not smart.
California does not really belong to the United States. It belongs to Mexico, and we stole it from them in 1850.
People would not have to be protesting if what was going on in this country was even a little bit normal. Instead of thinking about what's going on, think about what has been going on that causes something like this to go on.
Yeah, I would do absolutely anything for my daughter, and that includes going to a different country to give her a better life. And being undocumented is not a criminal offense, it's a civil one. And if you've ever jaywalked, congratulations, because you've also committed a civil offense.
Okay, give it a try. Take your ass outside the United States and illegally cross the border into another country, a country you think is so much better than the US of A. And yeah, see what happens to your ass.
And you're so worried about criminals being in this country, yet you voted for one to run it.
This is one of those moments where silence feels really fucking loud, because what do you mean you're not absolutely horrified by what's happening right now? If you are not absolutely horrified by what's going on right now, your delusion.
I've seen videos of children being separated from their families and families being pulled apart and people crying doesn't elicit any amount of empathy from you. I'm so sorry, but you might be the problem. Empathy and kindness are some of the most powerful things that we have. Everyone you see on here is a person with a story just like you.
I could never and will never be friends with a Trump supporter.
Thank God.
And I hate when people act like that statement is like a crazy thing to say. Personally, I like to share similar morals and values with the people I surround myself with. And at this point, it's always been like this, honestly. It's not even political, it's a human rights issue.
Influencer and content creators, if you can't even reshare something, we see you. Speak the fuck up. You should not deserve a platform if you can't even reshare.
Ooh, man. The grift is real with this one. It's not even about ICE or ICE or DACA or whatever. She just wants the shares and the likes to grow her following on TikTok.
We see you.
I say this with the most disrespect possible, but if you reap the benefits of Los Angeles and you're not willing to protect and respect the individuals who are the beating heart of Los Angeles, then leave this city. Because there are plenty of other states and plenty of other cities that will take you and your inhumane worldview, but it's not here.
So always have to be careful whether you see a burned car or broken window or whatever it is. It may be the exuberance of the moment, but it may be the anarchist setting in. I heard one of the former police chiefs of Los Angeles speak about this on Sunday.
And this is where I leave you. LA isn't a protest. It's the beginning of nationwide attacks. This is the disrespected trucker in his share here, which I don't know if you guys picked up on this earlier in the video where she was actually not bruised. It was a filter on whatever, probably TikTok or Snapchat or something like that. And it says, or he asks, what do you think? This was a Democrat's plan the whole time. Let me know what you guys think. Drop a comment.
Undocumented
But what they're
people
saying
are
is
not
the problem is that they
no,
are.
but I'm just saying we need to put that information out
But
there.
I don't
It is
think,
a civil infraction.
Yeah, and I don't
not
think
criminal.
it's actually broadly a misunderstanding. I think that 60% of Americans believe it's a civil offense, and that if you come here and you're undocumented, that you should be deported.
But he's actually lost some points on the way he's handling immigration, not the border.
Absolutely.
And
But it's the only place he remains
but
strong.
I think a lot of Americans voted for him on immigration, thinking he was going to deport gang members and criminals. And he is deporting our friends, our neighbors, mothers, fathers, people working hard to make America actually function. And this is not what I think a lot of people voted for.